Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about gardening, botanical history, and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is May 7th, and there are just 44 days until the first day of summer. Today we celebrate a Dutch botanist who helped advance the cause of medicine and botany in Austria. We'll also learn about the Brontë sisters on the anniversary of their first published work. We'll hear an excerpt from Kurt Vonnegut on his thoughts why there should really be 6 seasons. And we grow that garden library today with a book about creating a home that's inspired by nature. And then we'll wrap things up with the birthday of an Indian polymath and poet who won the Nobel Prize for Literature. But first, here's today's curated news. Today's curated news comes from Bob Vila. This is an article that was written by Mark Wolf, and it's titled 10 Gardening Trends Expected to Grow in 2021. Now, the first trend is new plant releases. This is always exciting, and this is something that happens every single year. The growers release the brand new plant cultivars, and then they are available for sale in many of the garden centers. So that's always a great question to ask. If you're in your garden center, ask them what new plants they're excited about, and they will be thrilled to give you a little mini tour. Now, before I get off of this topic, I just want to draw your attention to a few things that are very exciting for this year that you may see in a nursery near you. The first one is Encore Azalea. This azalea brings lush and long-lasting azaleas to the market. So if you have an azalea that seems to peter out just too quickly, you have to take a look at these new releases. Autumn Starburst is a bicolor bloom that's absolutely beautiful. That particular one is coral and white. And then Autumn Majesty is purple. So definitely check that one out. Now, this one I am particularly excited about, and it's called Midnight Cascade. It's from the Bushel and Berry collection, and it's the very first hanging basket blueberry on the market. Now, that is super exciting, and people who are fans of blueberries know how wonderful they are because they offer 4 seasons of interest. You get the beautiful flowers in the spring, the berries in the summer, and then beautiful foliage color in the fall. But with Midnight Cascade, you'll see the white bell-shaped flowers in the spring that will turn into an abundant crop of blueberries that you can pick from the hanging basket in the summertime. So that's fantastic and super fun, and the kids will love it. And then next is a brand new lilac that's called Syringa New Age Lavender. It's a compact, well-behaved lilac, and it's from Bloomables. So if you're looking for a well-behaved lilac, consider checking this one out. Now, some of the other trends that are mentioned in this particular post include growing more of your own food at home, so definitely yes to that. Creating a vibrant backyard habitat, so of course this means gardening with wildlife in mind. And then one more that I want to mention is something called a suburban retreat. And in this particular trend, they talk about how all of the new gardeners that started last year during the pandemic, well, 80% of them will return to gardening this year again. And what this also means is that if you're selling a home and your home has a garden, well, that is an attractive selling point. And so there's your suburban retreat. Now, for those of us who have been gardening for a long time, we know that the increase in gardeners means that if we want something, we have to probably order it early, or we have to track them down a little bit more. We have to be willing to pay for shipping and things like that. So keep all of those things in mind as you're planning your garden right now. One of the first things I did last week when I got back to Maple Grove is I had purchased some outdoor chairs off of Facebook Marketplace last year. And when I got the chairs, I knew they were in fantastic shape, but they didn't have any cushions. And of course, with everyone doing online ordering, cushions for your outdoor seating are going like hotcakes. And so I quickly went out and measured, and fortunately, I was able to find just what I wanted on Amazon because I didn't want to spend a fortune on these outdoor cushions, because my new passion is covering the cushions with material that I get from a fabric store. And then I don't have to worry about the original color because I'm just going to recover those cushions anyway. And that works for me because where these two chairs are, they're in a covered porch. And so I don't have to worry about them getting wet because of the rain. So that gives me a few more options. But in any case, most of us are all in the same boat. There's just finite resources when it comes to gardening or outdoor living. And if you are dead set on getting something this season, you're going to have to act quickly. Or you may experience some inventory shortages, and those are never fun. All right. Now, if you would like to read about the 2021 garden trends that were designated in this post over at Bob Vila, all 10 of them, you can, and they're loaded with wonderful little tips and suggestions as well, I might add. Now, if you're in the Facebook group, just head on up to the top, look for the little magnifying glass, and type in the word trend, and then this post will pop right up. Now, if you're not in the group, don't worry about it. You have a standing invitation. You can join at any time. Just head on up to the search bar where you'd search for a friend and type in the words Daily Gardener Community and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Now, of course, today is Friday, and one last thing that I want to mention is that today is the day that I send out my Friday newsletter, and that'll be coming out later today. So if you would like to receive the newsletter and you haven't subscribed yet, just head on over to the website for the show. It's thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org, and right there on the homepage, you can sign up to receive the newsletter. And let me just say that the very first time you receive it, you may need to check in your spam or promotions filter until your email knows that I'm not spamming you, that this is an email that you definitely want to receive. And if you see it there, what you need to do is just click on it and drag it into your inbox, and then you should be good to go. So there's a little tip for you about the newsletter. All right, it's time for today's Botanical History. Here's Botanical History for today, May 7th. Today is the birthday of the Dutch botanist Gerard van Swieten, who was born on this day, May 7th in 1700. As Gerard turned 40 years old, Empress Maria Theresa inherited the Habsburg Empire. She had much to do to get her kingdom into shape. When it came to medicine, Austria was about 200 years behind its European neighbors. The Empress acted quickly, recruiting the best medical experts that she could find, and Gerard van Swieten was one of the most important people that she brought on board. By May 1745, Gerard moved his family to Vienna, and then he began to set the stage for world-class medical training in Austria. Gerard totally reorganized medicine at the University of Vienna. He added a botanical garden and a chemical laboratory, and each of them were headed by their own professor. Now, while he was in Vienna, Gerard published in Latin 5 volumes on his teachings, and these volumes influenced medical practice throughout Europe. And here's a little fact about Gerard's medical books. They contain the very first description of a cluster headache. Now, during Gerard's career, he was very connected with the other botanists of his time. In fact, he exchanged letters with Carl Linnaeus for over a decade. And during his time in Vienna, he also became very close to the royal family. He even named his youngest daughter, Maria Theresia, after the empress, who was also her godmother. His son Gottfried would become famous in his own right as an Austrian ambassador and patron of great classical composers like Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. Finally, botanically speaking, the genus of mahogany, known as Swietenia, was named after Gerard van Swieten. And it was on this day, May 7th, in 1846, that the very first printed copies of poems by Charlotte, Emily, and Anne Brontë were published under a pseudonym of Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell. Just 2 copies were sold. To avoid prejudice as female writers, the sisters kept the first letter of their first names, and so Charlotte was Currer Bell, Emily became Ellis Bell, and Anne was Acton Bell. Emily's older sister by 2 years was Charlotte, and her younger sister and closest friend was Anne. They were 2 peas in a pod. After the death of their mother and 2 older sisters, the 4 remaining Brontë children were exceptionally close. There was Charlotte, Emily, Anne, and their brother Branwell. Now, the writer Emma Emerson wrote a piece called The Brontë Garden. In it, she revealed that the Brontës were not ardent gardeners, although Emily and Anne treasured their currant bushes as, quote, their own bit of fruit garden. Charlotte once wrote, Emily wishes to know if the Sicilian pea, Pisum savitum, and the crimson cornflower are hardy flowers, or if they are delicate and should be sown in warm and sheltered situations. The children's father, Patrick Brontë, was a bit of a writer as well. He once wrote, "Oh, why in the snow and storms of December, when the branches lie scattered and strewn, do we oftest and clearest and dearest remember the sunshine and summer of June?" And here's a little excerpt from a sad poem that Emily wrote called I Know Not How It Falls on Me. I know not how it falls on me this summer evening, hushed and lone, yet the faint wind comes soothingly with something of an olden tone. Forgive me if I've shunned so long your gentle greeting, earth and air, but sorrow withers even the strong, and who can fight against despair? It's time for today's Unearthed Words. Today's Unearthed Words come to us from the American writer Kurt Vonnegut. This is an excerpt from his book, If This Isn't Nice, What Is? Advice for the Young. One sort of optional thing you might do is to realize there are 6 seasons instead of 4. The poetry of 4 seasons is all wrong for this part of the planet, and this may explain why we are so depressed so much of the time. I mean, spring doesn't feel like spring a lot of the time, and November is all wrong for fall, and so on. Here is the truth about the seasons. Spring is May and June. What could be springier than May and June? Summer is July and August. Really hot, right? Autumn is September and October. See the pumpkins? Smell those burning leaves? Next comes the season called locking. That is when nature shuts everything down. November and December aren't winter, they're locking. Next comes winter, January and February. Boy, are they ever cold. What comes next? Not spring. Unlocking comes next. What else could April be? It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Inspired by Nature by Hans Blomqvist. This book came out in 2017, and the subtitle is Interiors Inspired by Nature. In this book, Hans helps us appreciate the link between our home interiors and our emotional health. Hans shares the elements of loved homes and comforting spaces. When it comes to interior design, nature is his muse. By incorporating natural elements into our homes, we can reduce stress and boost our mood. Hans loves to incorporate items like still lifes and natural finds and artifacts. And Hans is a master at creating vignettes to style your home. And when they're all done, they add visual interest as well as connections to our personal history and to the natural world. Using earthy colors and textures to engage our senses, Hans creates homes that exude warmth and tranquility. If you're looking to create a personal sanctuary that's grounded in the beauty and simplicity of nature, then Inspired by Nature is perfect for you. This book is 208 pages of the beauty, peace, interest, and magnetism created by nature-inspired design right inside your home. You can get a copy of Inspired by Nature by Hans Blomqvist and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $14. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is the birthday of the Indian polymath and Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, who was born on this day, May 7th, in 1861. In 1913, Rabindranath became the very first non-European, as well as the first lyricist to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. I thought I'd end the show today by sharing some of his marvelous quotes about nature. This first one is about the butterfly. The butterfly counts not months, but moments, and has time enough. And here are two of his quotes about flowers. "The greed for fruit misses the flower." And then this one, "I have lost my dewdrop," cries the flower, "to the morning sky that lost all its stars." And finally, here are three quotes about trees. "Trees are the earth's endless effort to speak to the listening heaven." And "The one who plants trees, knowing that he will never sit in their shade, has at least started to understand the meaning of life." And finally, "I asked the tree, 'Tell me about God.' Then it bloomed." Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Maple Grove and Wyoming, Minnesota. If you want to read today's show notes, just head on over to thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. And don't forget that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. Last but not least, you can always get in touch by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you on Monday.